To use the gavel. Okay, I think we're ready. All right, I call to order this June 4th, 2025 council workshop meeting, and we'll begin with the pledge. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First bit of a little, not on the agenda, but we have Councilor Mellon with us via video conference. I'll need a motion to approve her attendance by video conference.
So moved.
It's a motion by Deputy Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Stubbe. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Aye.
Motion carries. Welcome, Councilor Mellon. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Next up is citizens to be heard. So anybody who would like to be heard on any issue of borough government, now is your opportunity to be heard. If you would like to do so, come on up to the podium. And although we know who you are, you'll have to give your name and address for the minutes.
Hi, Tina Ziegler, 120 East Lowther Street.
John Werner, 133 West High.
So I just noticed that on the agenda, the welcoming ordinance that a couple of us have been advocating for the past couple of months is still not on the agenda, and so I was just wondering if there was an update.
We had just had advice and revisions circulated from our attorney.
Okay.
So council just got those. Really hasn't had an opportunity to digest them yet. So, but it's moving forward.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
what you have in front of you is a letter from the director of the Pennsylvania Immigration Coalition for basically supporting this initiative and giving some background about why it's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Stephanie, anybody by Zoom? Okay. Thank you for turning that fan off. Okay. Next, meeting minutes. Looking for a motion to review and approve the April 30, 2025 workshop meeting minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Deputy Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Stubbe. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries. I always have to remember that delay on video conference. Yeah. Next up, budget and finance.
Thank you. I have one item this evening. I make the motion that Borough Council approve the disbursement of funds as part of the 2025 budget to the following outside agencies: Bluegrass in the Grass Festival, $1,500. Carlisle Community Coalition, $2,000. Carlisle Summer Fair, $500. Central PA Annual HBCU College and Workforce Fair, $1,000. Community Empowerment Services, $750. Hope Station, $2,000. Lamberton Community Garden, $750. Project Share of Carlisle, $2,000. Regain Your Life, $750. And Shakespeare Page to Stage, $750.
A motion by the Deputy Mayor to approve disbursement funds as part of the 2025 budget to the following outside agencies is listed. I will second that motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Congratulations to all those organizations.
And for those that weren't aware, I should have said it beforehand, but the outside agencies is a process that we do 2 times a year. We have $20,000 total, so $10,000 each time approximately, depending on how many people or how many groups come and request. So we do the best we can to support as many great initiatives here in Carlisle. So we have another one coming up in September.
I think September will be the next round.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thanks for the extra details.
Mm-hmm.
Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one item today. I make a motion that Borough Council may approve an agreement with the Capital Area Intermediate Unit for Teaching Artist Services at the Skate Spot Mural retroactive to April 30th, 2025 through August 31st, 2025, unless otherwise agreed upon.
Councilor Roos makes a motion to approve the agreement with Capital Area Intermediate Unit for Teaching Artist Services at the Skate Spot Mural retroactive to April 30 through August 31st. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by,
Oh, sorry.
we'll take the second from
Sorry, Kate.
Council Mellon. Any discussion? I'll say I just sort of randomly took this item from our agenda coming up and posted on Facebook, and there was a lot of excitement about it. So we're really looking forward to what comes out of it. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The motion carries. Thank you, Council Roos. Under Public Safety, I move the Council amend its April 10th, 2025 approval for B&L Caribbean street closure to reflect a change in time, now authorizing the closure of the first block of West Pomfret Street from South Hanover Street to the Pomfret Street parking garage on June 14th, 2025 from 10:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. for a community event with no parking in this section of the street starting at 8 a.m. Approval is contingent upon the receipt of a valid certificate of insurance, naming the Borough of Carlisle as an additional insured, and the applicant reimbursing the borough 100% of the variable costs and 10% of the fixed costs associated with this event. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Council Roos. I'll just again mention this is the second such event that Brian Landers from B&L is putting on, and look forward to this event growing over the years. So, Brian, if you're listening, please keep doing the good work out there and creating community opportunities like this. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
Oh, and really quick, I believe that the Pride event, like out front, is that the same day? So you could go to the Pride event and then go over to the Street Fest.
There's a lot going on that
There's
weekend.
a lot going on.
It's Flag Day too. Next up, I move that Council approve the closure of the entirety of North Pitt Street, High Street from West Street to East Street, and the first block of North Bedford Street on Saturday, July 12th, 2025 from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. to facilitate the parade of vehicles celebrating 100 years of Chrysler, sponsored by the DCA in conjunction with Carlisle-Benz Chryslers in Carlisle. Approval is contingent upon PennDOT approval and the receipt of a valid certificate of insurance naming the Borough of Carlisle as an additional insured for this event, and the applicant reimbursing the borough 100% of the variable costs and 10% of the fixed costs associated with this event. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Roos. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries. And finally, I move that Council authorize the closure of the 400 block of Factory Street between Lincoln and A Streets on June 14th, 2025 from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. for a Father's Day community event. Approval is contingent upon the receipt of a valid certificate of insurance naming the Borough of Carlisle as an additional insured, and the applicant reimbursing the borough 100% of the variable costs and 10% of the fixed costs associated with this event. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Council Roos. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries. Okay, next is reports from council members, and Deputy Mayor Landis has the Gaza resolution up for discussion.
So thank you for giving me this opportunity to bring this forward. To give some backstory context, some folks had brought forth a ceasefire resolution last year in September, and I must take ownership that we did not address it. We did not take it and discuss it publicly as we normally do when things come forward, just as it was brought up about the welcoming ordinance. You know, we are working on that, but this one, it just fell off the agenda. In December, I realized that, and I had brought it up that we can talk about it again in January. And then the ceasefire actually, the first one actually happened. So then it seemed that we had missed the window of when it was as relevant. Now, as we know, this is a very fluid situation, that it changes almost day to day. And so I felt that at the time, the resolution, the ceasefire was not necessarily something to further but soon after, President Trump had started speaking about his interest in taking over Gaza in parts, using terms like waterfront property, really looking at it as a real estate um, opportunity, and without looking at it being a place where people live, where people have been suffering. And I understand that this is far away, but if we are going to look, we address things historically here in Carlisle, and for instance, we have the Carlisle Industrial Indian School, and that is, history that we took people from places where they lived here in, the United States. Every time that, I work at Dickinson College, and every time we have an event, there's a land acknowledgement of the Susquehannock Native Americans that lived here. So we have taken other people's land, and we try to understand the historical implications, although we cannot change the history. But what we can do is talk about what is happening now and try to think of the historical implication, history that has happened, and the implications of us not discussing these really important things now. So, personally, I do not want it to be part of the United States' future to continue colonizing other places. I also think about this place in particular and how it has been destroyed. Yes, I am not trying to minimize the issue with that there are still captives in Israel, in Gaza, and so we do want all of those people to be released, and we want there to be a ceasefire, and we want people to have aid and food, and so all of this is based on the idea that we, as a society, should say no when our leadership is trying to take over another place, and we have no reason or right to do so. I'll leave it with one other thing that I was thinking of historically, and I'm not a historian, so hopefully other people can weigh in. But I thought about the plantations in the South and how now they're used as wedding venues, and we can somehow, some people, ignore history and enjoy a lovely, beautiful space without realizing the death and destruction that is literally beneath people's feet. So the idea that this is just waterfront property to be redeveloped, we talk about redevelop here in Carlisle about old factories and things like that, but it's not the same. So I could read the entire resolution if we would like. We can open it up to public comment. We can discuss here, but that's where I am. And I also want to make one more acknowledgement that I understand that the ceasefire had resolution had a lot of other information in it. My hope is that we can actually pass something, and although we could broaden it, I looked at other municipalities. They had, some had put forward ceasefire resolutions. Some had, encapsulated lots of other information, including, aid and, making sure that the people that live in Gaza are, fed and taken care of. And these are all incredibly important topics. But because I wrote this in March, and now every single day things change, this is the resolution that is on the table for tonight. And although we have delayed a lot, I'm hoping that we can discuss it and at least move forward with this particular resolution. So that's.
Okay. Is it any questions or comments from council? Start there initially.
I do. I just have one comment, and I do want to just say to everyone that we really try to be careful with what we put forth and what we vote on and what we say, because it's going to affect, because it can affect people on one side or the other. So when if something is delayed, or if we are unsure about something that's been brought to us, it's because we're putting careful thought into it. And I know that Deputy Mayor Landis put a lot of thought into this, and it is something that we've all been thinking about, and it is hard. I mean, um, every day, like she said, there's something different, and we are just trying to make sure that um, all of our residents feel that we're with them, and that we stand behind them. So I just wanted to leave you with that comment from me.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Oh, sorry. Sure. Yep.
So first, I want to say personally, as just regular old person, Kate Mellon, I am horrified by what's going on in Gaza, the prolonged suffering, the unacceptable loss of life. I strongly condemn the continued use of violence in this conflict, not just in Gaza, but as we have seen so recently, also in the anti-Semitic attacks in Boulder, in Washington, D.C., and elsewhere. But as a council member, I want to say, as the mayor and my fellow council members may remember from the last time we had a conversation regarding the passage of resolutions in this body, I do not support, as a general rule, the use of resolutions of this borough to make statements on either federal or state domestic policy or foreign policy. And as I stated at our March meeting, if our intention is to attempt to sway policy at either the state or the federal level, resolutions are read to me as rather finite statements of belief and aren't really the best tool with which to initiate a dialogue and to attempt to advocate our state or federal elected officials to take a specific position or to vote a specific way. So you'll remember at that time we discussed a resolution in opposition to the SAVE Act, as well as one opposing cuts to Medicaid and SNAP. And I asked us at that time instead to send letters stating our position to our state delegation and our federal delegation, stating the direct impact that such policies might have on the citizens of Carlisle, and in this way hope to open a dialogue with state and federal elected officials in an attempt to find common ground. The resolution before us this evening is not, as were the previous two, presented as a reaction to legislation currently up for consideration. Rather, it was presented in reaction to a statement made by the president at a February 4th news conference. So I will just state that I strongly believe two things. The first is that this body cannot spend the remaining 3.5 years of the current administration reacting to every single shocking thing that spontaneously erupts from the president's mouth at a news conference. And the second is that it is not the role of this council to make pronouncements on foreign policy. None of the 7 of us are foreign policy experts. We were not elected to address international concerns. Frankly, I don't have the education or background to take on complex topics in foreign diplomacy. Our constituents elected us here to provide local services, be the best possible fiscal stewards of this municipality, and to promote discourse on local issues. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, I'll open it up for public comment. So anybody would like to comment on this item?
Good evening. I want to speak to you about the difference between intent and impact. I understand that some of you maybe view this resolution as symbolic, a way to express a viewpoint on a conflict happening thousands of miles away. But I urge you to think carefully. At a time when there are more than 130 armed conflicts in the world, why single out this one? This resolution will have no impact on foreign policy, but it will have an impact right here in our city on our neighbors. It will affect the Jewish community, people who are already under attack. We've seen a Jewish man and a Jewish woman murdered in cold blood in Washington, D.C. Just this past Sunday, we've seen firebombs thrown at peaceful vigils. These aren't distant fears. They're part of the reality that Jews in America are facing right now. And the rhetoric we've heard in these meetings has crossed a line. It's no longer just free speech, it's rhetoric that incites. And that incitement makes it harder for Jewish residents to feel safe, to speak freely, to live and work here without fear. You have a responsibility as elected leaders to make sure all of your constituents feel safe. That includes people on the far left, then the far right, and everyone in between. This resolution will not change what happens in Israel. It will change something here. It will deepen fear. It will stoke division. It will make people, your neighbors, feel less safe. Please think not just about what this resolution intends to say. Think about what it actually does, because the impact is right here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry. Sir, we didn't get your name. I'm sorry.
Your name and address and into the.
Your name and address.
Thank you. Sorry, John. Go ahead.
John Lerner, 133 West High Street. I just wanted to say that I think a lot of talk about this conflict is conducted in the language of justice, and I prefer to think about this conflict and others raging in the world and our society from the perspective of mercy. And I think from the perspective of mercy, we can most clearly see what a terrible, tragic loss of life that decisions has been brought about by decisions undertaken by our federal government, decisions that this resolution speaks to, and decisions that also fly in the face of our federal government's foreign policy on this issue since the 90s, as ruled by Congress when they, took a hand in beginning the modern contemporary peace process with the Oslo Accords in the 90s. I think this resolution is perfectly commensurate with how federalism has been practiced in this country, where by dint of circumstances and how complicated and distant this issue is from the day-to-day life of so many Americans, it falls perhaps unfairly, but inevitably on our local representatives to speak and carry the concerns of borough residents forward. As someone whose family is Jewish in the borough, whose family is Jewish who lives in the borough, I don't find this inflammatory. I don't worry about this inciting anything, because it's simply a resolution recognizing how difficult the current moment is and how much worse it could get if the U.S. continues to get involved, especially more directly as President Trump and various people around him have called for. So thank you very much. I really appreciate council considering this.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? Go ahead.
I'm Brian McDermott, 343 G Street. I'm going to be reading a statement from Eric Smith at 121 South East Street. But before I do that, I'd like to add that the idea of calling for a ceasefire shouldn't be seen as a incitement to anything violent. I find that kind of an absurd thought. But here's Eric's statement. I applaud the council and our borough community for holding this discussion that, while difficult and deeply emotional, has been urgent for over 75 years. This resolution, as others have already said, or will soon explain more deeply, is integral to who we are and want to be as a borough. It communicates not just our own residents, but our many international visitors, our representatives, and our nearby communities that we understand the depth and scale of violence already underway and that is planned, that we have learned from history, and when we say never again, we mean it, because this town has seen and done too much already, and that we recognize the wider world of the international community who are always at our doorstep thanks to our many neighbors from the borough's 3 colleges. I want to emphasize that we would not take this action only as an American town talking about potential American action. We're commenting as a diverse community who cares about and supports diversity everywhere, and therefore it's valuable for us to recognize that the takeover condemned in the resolution can take several forms. Whether or not the United States puts boots on the ground, the Israeli government has been explicit in recent weeks about its plans to occupy Gaza, and in the words of Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, leave the region totally destroyed. We must understand that they are doing so with and because of American military and financial support that is orders of magnitude greater than the support we have given to the people of Ukraine since their invasion by Russia in 2022, and that we have continued to offer this support without reservation even as the United Kingdom, France, and Canada, some of our oldest and strongest Western allies, released a joint statement on May 19th condemning any expansion of military action and warning clearly that if Israel does not cease the renewed military offensive and lift its restrictions on humanitarian aid, we will take further concrete actions in response. America stands alone in leaving the humanitarian crisis unaddressed. I am not calling for any amendments to the resolution under discussion. I believe it is crucial that we take a stand now, as it is already long overdue, and urge the Council to vote tonight after hearing the community's voices. I am making this statement so that we as a community understand the position we are taking and that we need to take. A U.S.-enabled takeover of the Gaza Strip and forceful expulsion of its legal residents is already underway, and the borough of Carlisle needs to take whatever action we can to be on the right side of history at this time. And again, that was written by Eric Smith at 121 South East Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Hannah Roman, 613 North Hanover Street, and I wanted to thank the Borough Council and Councilwoman Landis for bringing up a public discussion of a resolution opposing any further takeover of Gaza and for allowing residents of Carlisle to be heard on this matter. I do feel strongly that this resolution should be passed. I think that Carlisle has a large and diverse population of international students, residents, and visitors in its colleges. I work at Dickinson College, as well as in its immigrant communities. These people are an important part of the town and the region, and everyone should try to make them feel as welcome as possible in general and more specifically in opposition to the current political opinions of the U.S. federal government. Carlisle has been, as Brenda Landis said, the site of crimes in the past that were part of larger movements based in hate and beliefs in racial superiority. Let us not be on the side of history now that does not advocate that. Let us be on the side of history now that does not advocate for repeating or supporting these kinds of movements. I do realize that passing this resolution might cause Carlisle to become more visible politically and thus perhaps more vulnerable in the eyes of some. But I also believe that this should be passed regardless. This kind of resolution is long overdue as genocide and plans to commit more violence in the Middle East continue, and the U.S. government and military stoke their flames and fund their advancement. Furthermore, I hope that our courage and care in Carlisle will in turn encourage other communities to speak out against these horrible acts and to pass their own similar resolutions. We need to act in numbers and continue to unite against all hatred, racism, xenophobia, colonialism, imperialism, and genocide. We need to demonstrate, and we also need to give hope that democratic forms of government still work and are effective. This is an important action to take for American citizens and residents that stand for the values that this country is supposed to embody. And as someone whose grandparents escaped the Holocaust in Germany, it was so important that they were welcome in this country and that people understood the horrors that they saw. Genocide really should not be a political discussion. It just should not happen. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, Owen Parker, 613 North Hanover Street. I also want to discuss the item 7A on the agenda. I realize this is not on its face a local issue, which is what usually causes me to come speak before you, but for me it's part of preserving the values of this community. This town is wonderful. It's been welcoming to my partner and myself. We found friends in the community and new experiences aplenty, and a lot of that comfort comes from the fact this town recognizes that prosperity is more than just numbers on a tax spreadsheet. It's also about values, about kindness, about the quality of life that comes with how we conduct ourselves and treat others. It makes Carlisle not just a place with good property values, but good values, period. And those values have yielded action. We must make our community more just and equitable through accountability and transformative change. and that such work requires patience and time, and that this work must not stop, as stated in the recommendations to the Carlisle Borough Council from December 2022 of the TRC. Which means that to myself and others, the resolution under discussion is a means of affirming the stated core values of this town. To us, a terrible thing is occurring, and we must act on our communal and personal values. For my part, the Warren Gazette viewed mostly the radar dishes of satellites, mostly because between October 2023 and near the end of 2024, visible light images of Gaza were heavily restricted. Now, my partners told me that a long list of percentages, industries, and addresses would probably not work without a PowerPoint. So I'll summarize. The remote sensing community watched in real time as the water, food, and housing infrastructure of Gaza was quite literally flattened. That's actually how radar topography works. The things keeping people alive and in which people lived reduced in height by the work of bombs, munitions, and combat engineers. That increased time of return, and that's what we measured. I realize that's a lot of words. I don't mean to overwhelm. I just want to state that I'm not discussing a matter of emotion or political alignment, but the indirect but verifiable observations on the realities of this conflict. This conflict is hoping the destruction of the means to support life in the area. That will drive out the people living there. That is ethnic cleansing. We have opposed that in the past. Here, we should do that today, everywhere. Now, if our federal government wishes to take possession of ethnically cleansed land, I do not want our community to condone it. I believe that this feeling is widely shared, given the actions of this community, most notably the TRC. I realize that we do not have a direct say in what happens, but by God, that is no excuse to be silent. Such an action may not be viewed favorably by the federal government, but frankly, we should care more about how our actions today affect our views of ourselves tomorrow. If we cannot change it, then we should press for it to be changed. However we can. While we may fear being alone in opposing it, those committing it feel far more fear that they and they alone will be held responsible for our actions. Please confirm our community's values by passing this resolution. Thank you.
Any other comment? Yes, sir.
My name's Reverend Anthony Saturno. I live at 430 North Hanover Street. I only just found out about this 30 minutes ago, so I'm sorry I don't have anything prepared. But I want to just say thank you for the bravery to discuss this topic, for the bravery to create these resolutions, for the courage to say maybe these resolutions aren't even enough, but it's a start. I really hope this passes, and if it does, this last line here, because someone earlier mentioned about letters, I really hope a copy of this resolution is sent to our president, our state senators, and our state representatives. In this day where, well, it's not even today, but in this history where injustice seems to keep on winning, it's going to be in little small places that we turn it around towards an eye on justice and uplifting human dignity. And that's what these resolutions are all about the importance of everyone's dignity being seen. I hope you pass this resolution. Thank you for your time.
My name is Andy Hoover. I live at 681 West Lowther Street. I first saw this last night, and I have been all over the place about the resolution, but I don't think it's a really strong statement. It seems common sense and sort of obvious, the things that we shouldn't be doing. And I want to make clear, I'm speaking in favor of the resolution, just in case you're wondering. I think the problem right now is that we can see that something terrible is happening, and that our country is involved in that, and in some ways very enabling it, and it's really hard to know what to do. And it's really hard to stand by and not scream and say this isn't right. And I can respect the viewpoint that maybe this isn't something you think of borough councils doing, but it's not being done anywhere else at a government level. So I applaud the fact that you are taking this on. There certainly are risks that I'm assuming that you've thought about, that there are people in government now who will go to the nth degree to try to get even with anyone who opposes them. But somebody needs to stand up, and again, I applaud this council for at least considering it.
Any other comment? Go ahead.
Hi, Asia Banks, 110 South Hanover. I'll be reading a letter on behalf of Jennifer McDuffie, 702 North Pitt Street. Before I do that, I just want to say this is my first Borough Council workshop, and what brought me here specifically today was you guys voting on the Gaza resolution. I don't have any words prepared. I'm very passionate about this subject, and I'm really impressed that you guys are considering it. And yeah, I hope it's not going to be the very last of the workshops I go to, but yeah, I appreciate this. All right, like I said, on behalf of Jennifer McDuffie. Dear Borough Council member, since graduate school, an iteration of this quote has hung on my office wall. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. That quote by Father Martin Niemöller defines why we must be vigilant about protecting the human rights of everyone, or we will lose our own. As I'm not able to attend the meeting on Wednesday, June 4th, I am writing to express my full support for the Council to adopt the resolution to oppose the U.S. taking over the Gaza Strip. In addition, I am fully in favor of all statements contained therein or added to the resolution supporting the rights of the Palestinian people to live peacefully, have a place to call home, the two-state solution, and preserve their culture and way of life through self-determination. The leaders of our country are turning a blind eye and a deaf ear to horrid violence and destruction far beyond anything that could be called just retaliation for the attacks by Hamas on October 7th, 2023. Therefore, the individual towns, cities, and states within America must set an example and follow the rest of the world in condemning the inhumane situation in Palestine and the Gaza Strip. This is especially true of Carlisle, as we work to make reparation for our treatment of Native American children at the Carlisle Indian Industrial School. Isolationism is a thing of the past. We must speak up against injustice and take a stand for others before indifference delivers the result of which Father Niemöller warned. Respectfully, Jennifer McDuffie, 702 North Pitt Street. Again, the words are not my own, but I completely agree with the sentiment. Thank you.
Any other comment?
Tina Ziegler, 120 East Lowther. So first, I want to thank Deputy Mayor Landis because this conversation has been going on longer than September, and so I'm very appreciative of you continuing the conversation. Since we first began this conversation a year ago, I have learned some things, including some really horrific numbers, and I'm just going to share those with you because sometimes people like numbers. The entire length of the Gaza Strip is approximately 25 miles. The distance between Carlisle and Harrisburg is approximately 25 miles. The entire population of the Gaza Strip is about 2.1 million people. There is only little over 500,000 people in all of Cumberland and Dauphin counties combined. We like to talk about how Carlisle, right? We're just a town of 22,000. It's estimated that in the 39 years between 1879 and 1918 that the Carlisle Industrial School operated. And in those 39 years, 7,800 children went through those doors. And it's estimated that at least 970 didn't make them back out in 39 years. Since Israel's breaking of the ceasefire on March 18th, a simple 77 days ago, it's estimated that 1,309 children have been martyred and 3,738 children have been injured or maimed. I hope that with these numbers, it contextualizes the geography and the density of the human devastation that's happening right now. Carlisle in central Pennsylvania's history is one of settlement, cultural erasure, and genocide. This wasn't in my original writing, but it's bothered me since I saw it at our Cumberland County Historical Society shop. We sell hats with the Carlisle Industrial School logo on them, as if it's Dickinson or Shippensburg. We have a chance to not be known as that. And I hope that this is the first step that we can take specifically on this issue to make sure that we are on the right side this time. Thank you.
Any other comment? Okay. Stephanie, anybody by Zoom? Still no. Okay. I'm going to make some comments. One, I'm going to make it clear. Well, in fact, I'm going to run through a number of things. I oppose genocide. I believe there's genocide occurring in Gaza. I oppose genocide in North Korea. I oppose genocides that are continuing in Myanmar. I oppose genocides and persecution of refugees in Bangladesh and India. I oppose the genocide and the attempted genocide by Hamas of Israelis. I oppose the Israeli war crimes and genocide in Gaza. I oppose the genocide in Ethiopia. And I oppose the ongoing genocide in the Republic of Congo. Those are all happening throughout the world, and we're paying attention to one right now. And I sometimes wonder why that is. I have friends who survived genocide in Bosnia. I've spoken out publicly on that, and I think I'm a friend of that community. Several years ago, when approached by a member of that community because they were concerned where the affairs were going in Bosnia and Serbia, I presented to council a letter that they could sign on to. I didn't request a resolution. I requested a letter to express the position of the members of our community to our elected officials in Washington, D.C. I left it up to council members individually to make that choice. I agree largely with what Councilor Mellon expressed earlier this evening. And I've struggled with this issue, as a number of you know, from private meetings that were held with individuals in this community and from outside this community who were hoping for a proclamation from me similar to the original resolution that I couldn't support. And it was largely for the reasons in that resolution that were expressed earlier by, I'm sorry, Jordan, if I missed your name. There is too much hatred in humanity. There's also a lot of love in humanity. And I know that this resolution and this attempt to make a statement by council comes from a place of heartfelt concern for human beings throughout the world, not just in Gaza, but it would be there for anyone. And I would like to think if we were transported back in time, we would have opposed the genocide of indigenous people in this country. We would have opposed the enslavement of persons from Africa in this country, that we would have been standing right alongside John Brown and other abolitionists. We don't know. But I agree with Councilor Mellon that a resolution from this body is not the appropriate form for this action. And the resolution that's before us really isn't necessarily in opposition to the ongoing genocide. It's focused primarily, although that's the implication of it, it's focused primarily on statements that President Trump made. Statements that I think are generally made to attract attention more than anything else. And I'm not going to feed that troll. I will speak out, and I have spoken out against actions by this administration. I've had to be restrained in my willingness to fight and tempered in more strategic ways. And the deputy mayor is aware of that. But I can't support a resolution of this body that's way beyond the scope of council's role, while I am in complete support personally of everything that's in this resolution. And I'm in complete support personally of the cessation of hostilities in Gaza. We have a responsibility here in the borough, and a responsibility to the people and constituents that we represent. And at times that is to speak out on moral issues. We have people who are homeless in this borough. We have people who are struggling day to day to get through life, that are struggling with mental health issues, and we're trying to do work there. We have core responsibilities, and now we've spent time on what's an important issue, but we have important issues that are directly within our control that we should be spending time on. And this is an issue of federal policy that this resolution is not going to shift one iota. In 2024, the American people elected Donald Trump president. And I know there are people in this community and throughout the country who chose not to vote for his opponent because his opponent was not strong enough on the issue of the cessation of hostilities in Gaza. And this is what we've gotten. We've gotten a president who calls for the takeover and long-term ownership of a country of peoples who've been there for millennia. What should we all be doing instead? We should be gearing up to make a difference in the elections upcoming next year and send a statement. That's where we should be spending our energies. While this body spends its energy on doing the things that we can control directly to better the lives of people in this borough. And I want to make it clear as I finish this up, I am absolutely opposed to the war in Gaza. I'm absolutely opposed to what truly is a genocide in Gaza. But we have business to focus on. This is beyond the role of this body. And I just can't support this resolution. So this is an item that's been up for discussion. I don't know if the Deputy Mayor wants to take any action on it this evening.
I would. I think that this is what we were waiting on, the request to have a discussion, to have public comment, to open up the floor. I will just say that when I first brought it up, when I brought up about resolutions in general, right? So there is so much happening in our world, at our federal government, and we all feel hopeless, or we feel paralyzed in being able to do anything. So that's why I brought forward 2 other resolutions, which we did pass. But if this is the reason, simply because this resolution doesn't, impact, it's outside of the scope of what we can do, then I question our resolutions, our proclamations, everything that we symbolically say, and why do we do those either? It does make a statement. It does say before, and yes, I understand it's not a policy yet. The other 2 were policies, but it wasn't a fleeting statement. He made an AI video that showed exactly what he wants the world to look like there. So sometimes we can wait for policy, or we can be quiet. And do I want us to have large conversations about homeless and what we can do? Yes. I said when I first brought these resolutions forward that I've never, in the 8 years that I've been here, taken this time on my reports from counselors for anything, and I thought that this was the time. There are things that are just so important that my silence speaks words if I don't say something. So I've done what I wanted to at least bring it forward, to at least allow other people to say, and on both sides. I mean, people can have, this is the beauty of having a public discussion in our country. But yes, I am ready to vote on this. If everyone else on council is as well, because it's on the table, and I don't think putting it off anymore, delaying it anymore, which we have delayed this conversation for many, many months, and so that's where I am tonight. Is it okay if I put forward the motion, or does anyone else want to make comment?
Yeah, I want to say, so in my daily life, and I know you all see the color of my skin that I live in every single day, there are plenty of issues and plenty of things that I think about and I discuss on a regular basis because I don't have a choice. We just don't have a choice. The hard part right now, tonight, for me, is making that decision. I've listened to both sides, and honestly, I agree with both sides. I do, and that's what's hard about this, is that I agree with both sides. I agree with everything that the mayor said. There are a lot of issues. What's happening in this country is not new, and I think that first of all, before we do anything else, we have to acknowledge that this is not new. This is what continues to happen. This is how this country was formed, on all of the hate, the divisiveness, the racism, all of it. It's hard to make a decision about how we move forward. I think it's important that we continue to have conversations, and I think there are various ways that we can do that. I believe in community. I believe in hearing all voices, and I believe that all those voices are important. And there are ways as groups that we can make a lot of changes. It's hard to sit up here and make this kind of decision because so many people feel so strongly one way or the other. Regardless to whatever decision is made tonight, people's lives can possibly be put in jeopardy. Ours can be put in jeopardy. We see the things that are happening throughout. It does put us on the radar. And not that I'm afraid of a fight, because I'm not. But it does put us out there. It does put us on the radar. And it's just, for me, this is too important for me to make a snap decision. I will be honest, I haven't said much about this. You can go scroll through my social media. There's lots of things that you might see that I say, that I speak up about and I talk about, but those are things that I feel informed to speak about. I can't speak about something that I'm not as informed about. And this situation is one, I know what happened. I remember the news. I saw the bodies. I saw all of the things. And I'm very much opposed to what is happening there, and what's happening to the people there. I'm also very opposed to what's happening right here every day. We have people that are losing their jobs on a regular basis. Nonprofits are afraid. They might not even be able to help people who have been struggling, and that's what they've been tasked to do. Without funding, they can't do that. There are people who could be losing their health insurance. Um, this is a hard situation. So I will say, I think that yes, a decision has to be made one way or the other, but I'm going to be very honest. I can't make that decision. And I don't know, I'm not even going to say tonight because I don't know that I'll ever be ready to make the decision on whether or not we pass this resolution. I realize that um, it may not ever be seen, it may not ever be discussed if we vote yes and send it off. I also realize that it could possibly you know, be seen and be recognized, and that could put Carlisle in a, you know, in a space where we've not been before, and that's good or bad. Um, but I am not um, ready to make a decision one way or the other because um, I sit very much in the middle. So, but I don't think that it should be held up because I don't know what I want to say or do. I don't think that that's the case. So whatever happens tonight, I can just tell you, I'm not going to be able to vote yes or no either way. And I know that that might not sound right, and I truly understand that. But honestly, it's what I'm feeling right now.
Any other comment from council? Okay. There's not a motion on the floor.
I'll make the motion.
And before you do, I do want to say that I always appreciate, Brenda, all the energy you bring to everything and the passion that you bring to it. And I, I agree with you 100% on this issue, and appreciate you putting us in this position to discuss it. So, but go ahead.
I do put you in position sometimes, and I'm sorry. For what it's worth, however it goes, thank you all. Every single one of you. You make democracy work in this small space that we share, and I appreciate you. So I will make the motion that Borough Council, I don't know how to pass the resolution. Approve the resolution, the Gaza resolution.
Condemning and opposing any proposal or action by the United States to take over the Gaza Strip.
Yes,
Okay.
that.
Okay.
I make that motion.
I may vote against it, but I'm here to help you. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Shiles. We've had plenty of discussion, but I do have to open it up for council to discuss the motion that's on the floor. Any further discussion? Councilor Mellon, anything further?
No.
Okay. Then I will. I'm going to do a roll call because there's going to be a divided vote, and we're not going to be able to count them otherwise. So, Madam Secretary, the roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Landis.
Aye.
Ms. Mellon.
No.
Ms. Perry.
I abstain.
Ms. Ruth.
Aye.
Mr. Shiles.
Aye.
Mr. Stubbe.
Aye.
Mayor Schultz.
Nay. And I think that passes 4-2 with one abstention. Okay. The resolution is passed. Next up is new business. There's no further new business before council tonight. Is there any public comment before we adjourn the meeting? See none. Stephanie, nothing by Zoom? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
I did actually just have
I'm sorry.
something I want to bring up for
Go-
new business. Sorry.
Okay,
Sean.
we're unadjourned.
So I just was at Transit for All PA. It was a lobby day in Harrisburg for transit funding, and I was wondering if we might deliberate on a resolution for that we could send to our state assembly members supporting funding for transit in Pennsylvania. I can read a little bit about it if the bill currently transit funding in the United States or in Pennsylvania is not where it was in 2019, and what Transit for All is proposing, they're trying to bring the funding back to what the funding was in 2019 plus whatever, while also accounting for inflation, and they had suggested several slight increases in state level taxes for car rental fees, existing car lease taxes, and a ride hailing tax for Uber and Lyft. So that we could sort of essentially bring funding back for all PA for transit. Right now, I don't know if anybody saw the headline in the Sentinel. I think I don't know if that was today or yesterday, but transit funding in Pennsylvania is at a crisis right now, and so I think it's if we ever want to see transit, which is a part of our strategic plan that we are sort of gearing towards transit-friendly development, I think we should be, considering this and supporting it however we can. So I just thought I'd bring that up. If anybody has any questions or comments, happy to answer them. So.
Any questions, comments? Go ahead, Councilor Stevie.
Sure. Just the thought on this, considering comments on the prior resolution. Would it be beneficial to instead have a letter drafted for the meeting next week that we could consider, that we could address to Representative Gleim, Senator Rothman, and potentially the governor? And I mean, I do recognize the urgency of this, considering that it's transit funding. I've kind of done some work on this issue, so I do recognize the dire need for that in the Commonwealth, and the fact that the budget process is ongoing. So it would behoove us to take action on something along those lines this month as opposed to waiting till next month. So considering the comments on the prior resolution, would we want to consider maybe doing a letter that we would consider discuss next week as opposed to a resolution?
Thank you for bringing that up, Jeff. Yeah, let's do that instead.
Right, and something that ties in, obviously, all the things that we've been working on here in Carlisle, and the need that this gap would fill. Because I was just reading some articles on the transit needs in Pennsylvania this morning. As I'm getting ready for work, those are the kinds of things that I try to stuff into my brain before I head out the door. But thanks for bringing that up. And so, do we want to have Mitch? Would you like to take a crack at putting something together?
Yes.
Is that your plan?
I can do that.
Okay.
I'll try to get it done in a few days. So.
Okay, I'm just trying to project manage here.
I've got a contact from Transit for All, and I asked him about a resolution, but I'm sure I can get a letter, sort of draft letter that we could deliberate on. So.
Okay, and some of the needs that the transit would address are things that both Senator Rothman and Representative Gleim have been here and have supported when we've needed state funding to make our streets safer. So I think there's a nice linkage there too. Okay. All right. Thank you. Before I truly adjourn, is anybody going to try to bring something up again? Okay. All right. We are adjourned. Thanks again.